Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is March the 24th, 2017, and I am really pumped today on week 10 of this show to have some legends on. We've got Lorien Gamaroff from South Africa, the Renegade Investor coming from England, and of course, Vays coming straight out of New York City. Thanks for being on, guys. Let's jump right into this Renegade Investor. You're going to be first here. Well, to me at least, it appears we're headed toward a status quo situation in the segregated witness scaling debate. There seems to be a lot of stalling going on, a lot of talk going on, at least until May when they have this meeting. If they've scheduled this meeting, that means that people don't expect it to be settled by May at the very least. So Renegade Investor, what's going on in your head with this? Can we deal with status quo? What is your opinion of everything that's going on?
So I feel like we've been in the status quo for the last 16 months in terms of the scaling debate has been sustainable because we've been in a bull market since October 2015 all the way up till now. But the problem is, I think the problem with Bitcoin is a 50 billion network stuck in the shell, a 10 billion shell. So we're trying to scale. It's like a lobster trying to get out of its shell, trying to scale. But it can't because of the scaling debate. And because of that, investors are really starting to take notice. And, before, I've been ultra bullish. Bitcoin's a tale of two stories at the moment. On one hand, the external fundamentals are insanely strong. That's why I just created my video, why Bitcoin would hit all-time highs this year, or destroy all-time highs. Because if you look at the external fundamentals, they're insanely good. I feel like the scaling debate has literally hit a brick wall now, and investors are really starting to get pissed off. And I was talking about this before we came on, that I put a video out on my YouTube today that in October 2016, I was on the World Crypto Network talking about how the free market would force the price down if we didn't hit scaling. And I think we've just hit that point. And I'm part of a Bitcoin trading group as well, and we were all chatting about it today and there. And there's a lot of people now taking cash hedges going into alts, and also taking speculative hedges against the market, because if we're still a trend, I'm not going to lie. We're still on the front side. But if we break 950 on volume, we're going down. So I feel like this probably isn't going to be resolved before we see some blood in the streets, to be honest. So that's my opinion at the moment.
All right. Lorien Gamaroff, what do you think about the status quo? And does anyone around you in South Africa, are they noticing these issues with Bitcoin? Is Segwit, is the scaling debate done down there, or what's up?
No, well, those people who are aware of Bitcoin and are interested in Bitcoin and Ethereum and all the other alts are very aware of what's going on. And, they depend, as everyone does, on the commentators, the people who are high profile, the opinions that they have. And the opinions right now are very bearish. If we think about Vinny's recent posts and, and also Luke Larson, he wrote a great post as well. It's just the nature right now for people who are looking at these commentators to follow their advice. And so we are going to see, and I agree with Renegade, that we're going to be seeing blood in the streets, simply because that's the only signal that many of them are trading on. Very few people actually believe in or are aware of those external fundamentals, those global macroeconomic fundamentals that a lot of us in the space are aware of. They think that the world is sort of continuing as it does, and it's all hunky-dory. So the only thing they have to trade on right now are the opinions of the big names. So I think, because of those opinions, because of the fact that we have this impasse, because I think Roger has a lot of good points. And, of course, from a technical point of view, Segwit is, in my mind, a no-brainer. We need to go steadily and slowly. The peer-to-peer cash part of Bitcoin, is yet to be realized. And right now we need to focus on that store of value and the security and the stability of the network. But again, most of these people are short-term traders, and they're willing to easily flip out into alts. And I think we're going to see some serious downtrends, unfortunately.
Tone Vays, what do you think about this status quo?
I'm okay with it. I don't have a problem. Look, the core developers spent, a year or two working on the best possible solution to please all the sides. They came up with Segwit. They found a way to do Segwit safely so that there's no chance of 2 Bitcoins. If the market doesn't want that solution, then the market wants status quo. And I'm perfectly okay with it. I really don't mind. It tells me that people don't want cheap transactions. It tells me that people don't want faster transactions. They like status quo. And in fact, miners, especially the Chinese miners, they really want the status quo. They don't want to lower the fees. They're really enjoying these high fees. If that's what the market wants, if the users can't force Segwit onto them with, if 90% of all the users are running a Segwit compatible nodes, then they can go ahead and push this code into production. If the miners don't like it, they can mine on the, they can have the majority of the mining power, but they're not going to be able to sell their coins to anyone, right? Because 90% of the network will reject their big blocks. Look, if the market doesn't want Segwit, then fine, then they don't care, right? And I'm okay with it. This is pushing a lot of the weak hands, like you like to call them, Adam, a lot of the traders, a lot of the speculators. It's pushing them out, and that's okay too. Look, if you want to go, trade scam coins, you can just go and scam trade coins. Like that's not what I do. I still believe in the core. I haven't seen a single core developer quit yet. So I'm still a strong supporter of Bitcoin. And if the price goes down, then the price goes down. Then Bitcoin doesn't deserve to be at that price. So the status quo doesn't really bother me.
Now, a follow-up question to that, Tone, and I'm going to ask everyone this follow-up question also. The guys on the Rogers side do a good job of getting their word out and making themselves seem quite large, I'd say. How large they really are is anyone's guess. But they've been, because people are worried about them, there's been a lot of talk about and the use of the word compromise. Tone, I know you're not a big fan of that word. What do you think about compromise as an option here?
You know what? I'm gonna say something different because, again, I finally had a little time. I'm in Philly, by the way, right now. I'm not in New York. So I had a bunch of time this morning. I ignored everybody, and I listened to some of the other things that people had to say about Segwit. And we're all learning something. So I learned something, and I kind of knew it, but I looked into more of the details. Segwit actually was a compromise to create a larger block. So something Peter Todd said on the Mad Bitcoins interview, where he said, well, Segwit probably would have passed by now if it had nothing to do with the block size. Because Segwit, fixes transaction malleability. It fixes a lot of the other things that I'm not technical enough to explain. And then, like, one of the 4 things that Segwit does is it creates, it puts more transactions. It's basically a block size increase, because if everyone is Segwit compliant, it's 4 times more transactions will fit into the block. Now, if they did not put that feature in, they think that Segwit would have had a much easier time passing. So Segwit was the compromise. The part of Segwit is like, all right, fine. And he also said that people in core debated this. There were lots of people in core that said, no, we should just have Segwit without any block size increase, without more transactions into a block. Some people were very adamant about that, and it's possible that the mistake was to compromise. Right now, the compromise isn't about a bigger block. The compromise is about who controls Bitcoin, who controls the core code, who is the president. is basically the compromise, right? Is the compromise that they want, and they don't realize that they're dealing with Core, which is not Blockstream. It's literally 100 decentralized developers that aren't in control. They can just propose the best possible change. So Segwit was the compromise, and maybe it was too much of a compromise, and they don't like it. The fact that Core developers got it right, and they need to get him out. You know, get the strong guy off the island. He's definitely going to win Survivor.
All right, Renegade, what do you think about this compromise talk?
To be honest, I don't believe in compromise. Like, one person I follow on YouTube is Buton or Buton. I can never pronounce it, but he was talking about this the other day, and he said Bitcoin is a free market just like any other market. And would you have any other company in the free market trying to compromise with their competition? So would Apple try and compromise with Microsoft? No, because you want, at the end of the day, you want the best products. The only way you get the best products is when you have two different entities competing in order to create that. So in the same sense that you have Core and you have all these altcoins competing as well. And that one is sure that at the end of the day, we get the absolute best products. And for me, like Core, like, I'm not a technical person, but I follow every single technical person in the space, and they all point to Core as like the de facto, you know, Hollywood stars of the programming world, you know, the people that build out the infrastructure for the internet. So why would they want to compromise? Like, at the end of the day, I wouldn't even want them to compromise. I want to have the best possible Bitcoin that's going to secure a network that's storing $20 billion in value. Like, why on earth would you want to compromise? Like, you know, and that's my view on that.
Oh, wait, one second. I wanted to point out that the links to all these guys are below. I forgot to say that. And I strongly am against. So, Tone, you wanted to follow up real quick?
Yeah, I just want to follow up real quick. I mentioned earlier that the compromise that they did was on the block size, but the compromise that Bitcoin Unlimited wants is a compromise on politics. Now, again, we need to separate here. What are we compromising on? If we're compromising on the block size increase, Segwit is trying this, but there is no compromise between a soft fork and a hard fork. This is not compromisable, right? Like, oh, they need to compromise. It's like, but it's like saying, well, like you were saying with Microsoft, it's like Microsoft needs to, you know, create software that runs on a Mac, right? Like literally Microsoft. It's like, well, they're incompatible. Like, you can't compromise a soft fork and a hard fork. Like, anytime I hear them wanting to compromise, it's just retarded to me. It makes no sense.
All right, Lorien, tell us your views on that. And also, Lorien, tell us, what do you think the odds are of a hard fork actually happening? So two-part question.
Okay, so the compromise part, that's true, Tone. I mean, you can't compromise on either you hard fork or you don't. I mean, it's like being half pregnant. But I think the compromise, you know, with a technology like this where it can be so political, you know, the fact that we're forced to compromise means that we have to progress at a much slower, steadier pace. And by doing that, it forces us to be a lot more careful with the decisions we make in terms of which direction the technology is going. Because as soon as you make a drastic choice, then of course you're going to alienate some people, and you're going to create contention, and there's going to, you know, be this potential where, you know, things become crazy and everybody wants to fork off. So I think the fact that we do have a global system, and there is no de facto leader of the system. If we introduce the concept of a compromise, where at every single point, every decision we make, we try to reach the limit of the compromise before we actually then progress, I think that's going to force us to be a lot more careful with the way this goes. And, you know, in development, in technology, you know, compromise and slow, steady progress, I mean, that can be useful, and that can be helpful, especially with something like this where we're dealing with money, you know, we're dealing with trust. So, you know, I'm okay with people talking about compromise and bringing up the conversation and trying to find where that point of compromise is. But of course, I mean, ultimately, I think that Bitcoin must fork. And so the compromise will be, I guess, is it now or later? So that's my thoughts around the compromise aspect. And then, Adam, your second question was
Do you think this hard? What are the odds of this hard fork actually happening?
Well, Roger is determined, and as I said, he's got some very good points. I mean, I have a Bitcoin business. I'm trying to get Bitcoin into the hands of every African, and there's a desire for a digital cash. 80% of Africans are unbanked. Of course, the big reason is the store of value reason, where people feel that the value of their currency is eroding away. But to be able to engage in a digital cash economy, that's going to be incredibly useful for an African. It would be great if we could have a cheap, efficient, quicker, digital currency. And so Roger's got some very good points. I mean, I'm facing those issues right now, and when I listen to Roger, to be honest, I can sympathize with him, and I feel like that if Unlimited was as peer reviewed and as there were as many eyeballs looking at that code as with Core, and we could sort of analyze or theorize about the potential economic implications around this, and realize that bigger blocks might perhaps not lead to centralization, then I would actually be very keen on creating Unlimited. So, of course, from a technical point of view, I'd rather go more steadily and let the larger team, which is Core, their slow and more conservative approach prevail. But Roger's got some good points. Now, there are others that are like me that are probably less technical and more interested in the digital cash component, especially in Africa. And Adam, you were in Africa, and you saw, what it's like to be here. So it could very well be that there's some contingent of people that say, right, we like Unlimited, and we're willing to go with it, and so we'll create the fork. Doesn't matter, because we'll have coins on both chains. Okay, fine. If one chain proves to be unviable, let's say Unlimited crashes and burns, they'll be naturally selected out of the ecosystem, and the free market will prevail. So, I think it could happen. I'm not so fearful about it. I think Bitcoin has faced a lot of turmoil and turbulence over the years, and ultimately we all want a peer-to-peer digital cash, sound money. And maybe it won't be this Bitcoin that we have and we've grown to love, and that's something that we all wish that we've grown fond of it. It's like our old friend now. Maybe there will be something else, but there's good points on both sides. From a technical point of view, Segwit to me is the correct approach, but who knows? Maybe Unlimited will succeed. Who knows?
I want to bring up a point that you actually kind of hit on. Vinny Lingham and had said this week, and I have said this in the past, that a hard fork for Bitcoin will be just devastating. I don't care what they're hard forking. If it's a contentious hard fork, it is devastating, and people will be very confused. Which Bitcoin do I buy? It brings up all these marketing aspects that a lot of people don't take into consideration, I think. And that it could just be right now, people just with the threat of a hard fork are like, what should I do with my coins? What should I do with my coins? I don't know. Will they be split automatically? There's so many questions. So I guess a follow-up, and Lorien, you kind of answered this already, but if you think differently, please chime in. Renegade, with a hard fork, is it devastating, like Vinny Lingham says? Is it something that must be avoided at all costs?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I've been thinking about this a lot, and obviously, like I wasn't involved in Ethereum before the DAO hack at all. I wasn't an investor. I traded it a little bit, so I'd only speculated in and out of it. But I wasn't involved in Ethereum at all. But now, from someone looking outside in, like I don't know what's going to happen in the future with Ethereum. I don't know which blockchain is going to survive, which one's going to be dominant. And to be honest, like it's hard enough sometimes. Like when I recommend Bitcoin to people, not only have you got the risk of Bitcoin being highly speculative, but then if you've got two versions of it, which one do you then recommend to people? You've got another layer of added risk there. And I think, like Vinny Lingham says, like Bitcoin is a major brand. One of the biggest attractions to it is that it's has a fixed supply. And as soon as you start forking it left, right, and center, suddenly you've gone from 21 to 42 million coins. And all of a sudden, that entire value proposition goes. I still think, as of today, the biggest use case for Bitcoin is is counterparty and inflation hedge asset at the moment. That can change over time, which I might talk about later on. But at the moment, it is a counterparty and inflation hedge asset. As soon as you start forking, all of a sudden you've got like 42 million coins. Then you start losing the main use case for Bitcoin as it stands right now. So personally, we have to avoid a hard fork at all costs. Like I didn't want to contemplate it right now. I just think it'll be devastating.
All right, Renegade, and with just real quick number, what do you think the odds of it actually happening are?
I'm really not sure. There's a lot of varying probabilities. I know Andreas Antonopoulos came out the other day and said 10%. I co-host the Bristol Bitcoin meetup, and one of my friends that comes is called John Harvey, and he wrote a article recently about why the sort of miners have gamed this entire situation in order to drive up a fee market. And he said at the end that he's got his suspicions, and he's majorly technical. He knows the tech side down to a T. But he said he wrote in his article that he has a strong suspicion that all the miners know the core Segwit is the way to go, but they've just been gaming the entire disarray in this scaling argument in order to drive up fees, because they've gone up like from $85 to $85 per megabyte or block up to over $1,000. So you imagine for miners in terms of cash flow, that's like going from the bottom of the Silk Road up to the top of 2013 in terms of fee issuance. So obviously, like I personally believe that the miners deep down, they understand the Segwit would be the way to go, but they're going to game this till the end. And it looks like at the moment, it looks like that end might be close if we start to see a big sell-off.
All right, Lorien, I'll let you. Did you want to say anything to that, because you didn't get to exactly address all that stuff, or is there anything you wanted to add before we go to Tone?
No, go for it, Tone.
Okay, Tone, take it away.
What was the question again? Like the danger of a contentious hard fork?
Vinny Langham says that a hard fork, that is the goal, to avoid a hard fork at all costs. Do you agree with that type of statement, that a hard fork must be avoided because it will be devastating for Bitcoin? Bitcoin will never be the same.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's a strange question, right? Because does a hard fork need to be avoided at all costs? Probably not. A contentious hard fork avoided at all costs? Probably. But if the cost is to compromise the security or the viability of the future of the network, then no, then you go and let the hard fork happen. It's only a problem if this alt chain that forks off of Bitcoin is viable in any kind of way after about 3 months. Like if Bitcoin Unlimited fork is rendered useless, let's say it's number 8, number 9 on market cap, 3 months in, then it's probably not going to be a big deal. No one's going to use it. No one's going to care. And this will be a good lesson for the next 10, 15 years of what happens. Like if Roger Ver and the biggest chip maker and the biggest Chinese miners, if they couldn't hijack Bitcoin, then no one will probably try again. So, I mean, there is good that's going to come out of it. There's additional good that's coming out of this nonsense in that the core team is 100 decentralized developers. A few of them are supported by Blockstream, but the rest aren't. And they're probably working together very, very well and not arguing between each other because they have this common enemy that's trying to hijack Bitcoin for the 3rd time now between XT and Classic and now Unlimited. So I think that answers the question.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I would like to say that a contentious hard fork obviously is what must be avoided, not a technically necessary hard fork. But at the same time, you give a scenario where, well, if it ends up being the number 9 crypto, then, lesson learned. But we can't predict that in advance. This is the uncertainty, and I think this is what's worrying a lot of people. So give us your odds on it actually, and you've done this on other shows, but not everyone's heard you yet. Your different odds on it actually happening, on it being successful, on it destroying Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, obviously I haven't sold any of my coins throughout this, so my odds of them actually attempting a hard fork is probably at about 25%. The odds of that hard fork being successful and destroying, and like the odds of them becoming the dominant chain, I give that like less than 5%. But to me, if Bitcoin Unlimited becomes a dominant chain, then in my view, Bitcoin has died, Bitcoin has failed. And if Bitcoin fails, then Bitcoin fails, right? Then some of us have wasted several years of our life trying to fight for censorship-resistant value transfer. And it didn't work because what I am learning in this crypto space is basically 200 years of the evolution of money and how the United States came to its current position of money in the world. All of that is being replayed 10 times faster in the world of Bitcoin. And it comes down to power, and it comes down to who controls the money. It's really amazing. I have a huge found respect now for the Federal Reserve. I have a bigger respect now for Wall Street. Well, like everything has flipped. I'll talk more about that maybe on other topics, but it's amazing how people want control of money.
Hey, everyone, remember to like this video. Pound that like button right now. Give us that thumbs up. We've got over 133 live viewers now. Really awesome times. Tony, you did bring up one interesting thing that I'll get to the other guys in a second and let them say whatever they want. But you said the 5% chance that Bitcoin, that the Roger Ver, whatever, the China coin becomes the real coin, becomes the Bitcoin. You're out of it.
The dominant.
It becomes dominant. You're out of it. It's not, Bitcoin is dead. But if that terrible scenario does happen, there are some people that are going to be like, oh, that's awesome. I'll be able to participate. That's great. I don't give a darn about it. So at that point, that'll be Bitcoin, and Roger Ver will be the face of that. I mean, he'll be the Satoshi. Well, do you agree? And will the United States government try to arrest Roger Ver at that point? I mean, he'll have a target.
I mean, Roger Ver is not a U.S. citizen, so he doesn't have all that much to worry about. Also, Roger Ver is not a developer, right? He's literally like, he's basically like the mouthpiece, and he's the community director, basically. So it's not like Vitalik Buterin, who's both the community director and the lead developer, right? So going after Roger Ver is not going to do anything to the Bitcoin Unlimited chain, assuming it ever becomes dominant. But I will tell you exactly what's going to happen. If they become the dominant chain, then you're going to have, literally like incompetent developers. Like, it's not going to be sustainable, right? So like Bitcoin will fail because there will be nobody competent programming Bitcoin. I mean, it will immediately become spyware. So yeah, people might still use it, and it may still serve its function. But the only reason I have confidence in Bitcoin is because of who is actually programming the code. If the people aren't programming the code that I trust, why on earth would I use that coin? Like, I use the US dollars because I trust that the US dollar will have the most stable value tomorrow when I wake up. This is why I don't walk around trying to convince my local grocery store to take the euro or the South African rand, right? So there will be nothing left in it for me for Bitcoin because I'm not going to see a future in the stability of the code or the price.
All right. Lorien, do you have anything to add to this discussion?
Yeah, so I also think that the odds are low. We heard all these statements from the exchanges, and it seems that it's going to be a while, before the market actually accepts something like this, especially something that hasn't been battle tested. But again, just going back to the whole point about what Roger's trying to achieve here, he has the right idea, but I think he's trying to bring about something that we all want eventually, but too soon. When we think about the way the internet developed back in the 90s, none of us were expecting there to be Netflix or social media when we were on our very slow modems. We just sort of let the internet happen to us. We would, if months would go by, suddenly there was a new app, or maybe our bandwidth would improve. But we didn't have any expectation about what we wanted to do with the internet. Now, Bitcoin has come along in the same way. It's a technology, and it's at this stage, it's slow and clunky and difficult to use. But now the idea is that we want to now replace the financial system. And it's just, we're putting too much of an expectation on what this thing will perhaps ultimately become, but cannot be right now. So and there were a lot of big ideas back in the 90s. If you think about the dot-com bust, there were a lot of companies who had that vision, but they didn't realize that they had to wait for the world to catch up. They had to wait for user adoption, they had to wait for technology to improve, but they had the right ideas. If you think about pets.com, most famously, but a lot of pet food is bought online now. So, again, I want Roger's vision. I want there to be a currency that is quick and efficient, but I realize that it needs to go slowly. And he will try this, and he's going to realize that it's a lot more difficult than just creating those blocks. And the market is going to realize that. So, I'm optimistic going forward, and I do think, as to Tone's point, there's a lot of clever developers out there. I mean, the fact that they're working on blockchain, those guys, I know that they're spoken of as superheroes, but they are competent. And this technology is unique and innovative, and it does solve problems that were never solvable before. And so I think over the long term, Bitcoin will prevail, and it might morph slightly here and there, and it will achieve the things that we wanted to achieve, maybe not in its current form, but I'm very optimistic long term. But also, if you should read an article that Luke Larson just published, where he just describes the issues about the amount of transactions we need per second if we were to compete with Visa, and Bitcoin, at least in its current the current technology we have today, could never do that. And so we need to depend on second layer innovation, and Segwit is just that step in that right direction. And I think the market is going to realize that. So I think there's a low probability of unlimited, and I'm very optimistic about the future of Bitcoin. And this price slump that we're having today is exactly like every price slump that we've had before. If you want to make money, if you want to go to the moon right now on the price, you're going to be disappointed. But I'm with you, Adam. Buy and hold, and the good times will come.
Okay.
Hey, Lorien, quick question. What's your best estimate of how many years it took Visa to get to that amount of transactions per second?
It must have been decades. It must have been 20 at least.
Right. So why do we need Bitcoin to be Visa tomorrow?
We don't, exactly. It's too much to expect.
Okay, I think we agree on that. Renegade, do you have anything to add to all this to wrap it all up?
Yeah, absolutely right. Biggest problem in Bitcoin that I see from mainstream media, but not only from the mainstream media, from everybody inside of Bitcoin and lots of different people, is that they don't extrapolate out far enough into the future. So at the moment, Bitcoin is primarily a counterparty hedge and inflation hedge, because that's exactly what the world needs right now. We have systemic issues with fiat currencies, with global debt, with counterparty risk to the legacy financial system. So that's what the world needs right now. But that doesn't mean that Bitcoin is going to be like that forever. It's going to evolve throughout time. Now, one of the things I'm going to say to this is, so I've lost my train of thought there. Is that, like at the moment, and you've got Gresham's law going on, okay? So you've got bad money driving out good. Like, who wants to spend their fiat currency when you can, who wants to spend their Bitcoin when you can spend your fiat currency? Because that's the one that's like not worth a lot. I view Bitcoin like gold dust. But eventually, when we hit the top of S-curve adoption, if Bitcoin goes mainstream and we get to saturation, then Tears law comes in. And that's where good money drives out bad, because at that point, you get high inflation in the fiat currency, it loses its purchasing power, and then you want to use your Bitcoin, which has a high purchasing power. So I think over time, we are going to see Bitcoin's use case evolve, and the percentages are going to change. So people will view it less as a store of value, more as a medium of exchange, but that's going to change over time. But I still think the best way to get there is through the layer 2 scaling, because obviously, like, if you try and scale up to Visa 25 transactions per second through the base level, you're going to have like 1.2 terabyte storage a day in that case. Whereas, you have Lightning network channels, then you're not going to have that problem, or the massive centralization of mining. So I think that's the biggest problem. And I actually call it the pushy parent problem, which is that Bitcoin's an 8-year-old that everyone thinks should graduate college right now. And it's just not, it's not there yet, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be. In actual fact, I saw an article in the mainstream the other day saying how little Bitcoin's done for the third world. And it's like, well, give it a chance. Like, this is 8 years. We barely scaled it. And I think it's going to resolve everything in the third world already. So, and it's the same with the volatility. This is a free market, grassroots currency Of course it's going to be volatile, of course. Like, but just give it time, and over time it will become less volatile, and then it'll become more of a medium of exchange. But I do understand his argument that the utility drives the underlying value of Bitcoin. And so, you know, but I think the percentages will slowly change. But to run into it now, and, you know, yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, spot on, Renegade, I agree.
Yeah, I actually, that brought up a follow-up question I wanted to send to, because I got something for you too, Renegade. But Lorien, right now, give us, I guess, a report from the region. First of all, I want to say Lorien and I have been on the ground together in South Africa, in Mozambique, in Zimbabwe. We have been in the trenches together, teaching people about Bitcoin, people who have no clue about it, some of them, and who go through some really horrifying bank nightmares. So with that as background, Lorien, in a country like Mozambique, in the city of Maputo, I mean, they're not interested in using Bitcoin for coffee right now. The use cases that Renegade just gave seem very valid right now for people in Mozambique and Zimbabwe. I mean, can you give us some insight on what store of value really means there, and what it means to be able to get your value out of the country in those countries?
Yes. So now, well, strangely enough, it's not actually the store of value right now that is the most pressing need. It's just cross-border remittance. I mean, that everybody always talks about Bitcoin being a perfect solution for that, and that is where we see in my business as well. We're providing the same technology similar to what BitPesa does. We allow people to send Bitcoin to mobile money, and that is a clear use case that can save people money, can enable them in ways that they were never able to be enabled. I mean, you know, when people send money from South Africa to Zimbabwe, we're next door to each other. Very often they're smuggling the money in suitcases, and so the remittance aspect, in my mind, is actually the most valuable right now, and where the clearest demand is. So a store of value, of course, right now people would love to be able to save money, but at least preserve their wealth. But it's more a case of just moving money. And with Mozambique, as we saw there, they've got a lot of business associate partners and that in Japan, and they want to be able to pay their suppliers easily. And so the cross-border aspect of Bitcoin is the perfect use case, and the one that does add real value today. But again, that works fine with the Bitcoin that we have right now, because, okay, sure, you pay a supplier, it might, at worst case scenario, get confirmed a day later. Worst case scenario, you're paying $1 or $2 on the fee. Doesn't make a difference. So we're very excited about that, and that's the place that we see where that is going to be where the adoption and the growth happens, and we see it already happening right now. So we're very excited about that.
I just think it's important to remember that aspect of the status quo is totally fine for those people down there. I mean, this Segwit thing doesn't make a big difference at this point when you talk about large cross-border transactions and not really depending on time. And I think it's important. And I think pointing out what Renegade Investor pointed out, we don't need the Bitcoin revolution in Africa just yet. I mean, be patient. I mean, things take time.
It's coming, and it's going to come quicker than you think. As soon as these products are developed, and that's the only problem. The products aren't there yet, and that's what we are tackling. As soon as those products are online and people are aware of them, you are going to see growth, and you are going to see people becoming much more aware of Bitcoin, because now they see the value in it, not just as this hedge against inflation or the speculative asset, this real thing with utility. So it's just a matter of companies like mine actually building out a product. That's the only thing that's holding Bitcoin back right now, not Segwit and not Unlimited and not uncertainty and all that.
All right, Renegade, I've got a question for you here. There was an article this week by Michael Krieger that kind of talked about the China aspect and this Jihan Wu and the mining, and that people should wonder if the Chinese government has anything to do with the other side. And what do you think about all that, about the Chinese government? Or fear of the Chinese? Is it just FUD? What's going on?
So one thing which I've noticed lately, which is, and everybody thought the PBOC kind of intervention in the sort of wash trade, trading on Chinese exchanges was a good thing, and to be honest, so did I. But one thing I'm starting to realize is that the PBOC getting involved in regulation is like asking a squatter to stay for the weekend. You know, they're going to hang around forever. And to be honest, if any nation state out there understands Bitcoin, then they're going to be against it, because Bitcoin literally threatens the entire relationship. It could be the separation of state from economics, currency, and finance. Like it could be that big a change, similar to the separation of the church from the state. And it could also severely threaten the future income of nation states if you have things like mixers that can mix transactions. So you can't even tax sort of economic activity. So if any nation state understands Bitcoin, they're all going to be against it. In terms of, and that's what we know about Bitcoin. Like, we all know that it's going to be world changing. It's the biggest anti-establishment weapon on the face of the planet, bar none. It is an anti-establishment super weapon, the likes of which we have never seen. So you can bet your dollar that there's literally 100 think tanks around the world right now working for every single nation state of how they can probably, intervene, coerce, circumnavigate Bitcoin, reduce its ability. Like, that should be a given for everybody right now, that this is going on. There isn't one single power center in the world that probably isn't thinking how they can bring down Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to be hated by everybody in the top 1%, 0.1%, who literally have run the world for hundreds of years. So it's, to me, like, the one thing that I've noticed about Bitcoin Unlimited in that sense, and this whole thing, is that if you look at the hash rate that's going towards Bitcoin Unlimited is 75% from free Chinese miners, which is via BTC, Ampool, and BTC.top. So I don't know if the state can coerce those free miners through, I don't know, like backhand finance, I don't know, anything like that, then they could have a future say. Like, if Bitcoin Unlimited became a dominant chain, which I personally don't believe it will. But it's definitely an attack vector. That's one thing that I will say about Bitcoin Unlimited. It opened up an attack vector on Bitcoin in 3 different ways. One was the exploitation from the miners on the fees. Second, possible intervention from the states in terms of the centralized mining, especially with the Chinese mining pause. And the third, I'll come back to you on that one. Sorry, I forgot that.
Renegade, I want to add something to what you're saying there. Now, we work very closely with our central bank and our regulators. They are using us as a case study, and we are the company that they're sandboxing to watch. And you'd be surprised that it's not that they hate Bitcoin or they want to kill Bitcoin. There are a lot of clever people in these banks, and they realize, and a lot of them have made public statements saying, listen, we cannot stop it. I think the PBOC, there was a statement saying we cannot stop Bitcoin. Now, what they're trying to do is not try and kill it. It makes no sense. You cannot do that. What they're trying to do is now go to those on and off ramps where they at least can have some measure of control. And they can say, all right, do you know your customer? Where's that money going? Where's it coming from? And that's where they can now insert themselves. And that's the approach that they're taking. So, of course, from a state level, if you can imagine a world economy where we all are engaging exclusively with Bitcoin transactions, we don't ever cash out into fiat. Yes, of course, that has the potential to undermine the state. And I think ultimately, this is the world we're moving into. I mean, the always big statements about blockchain changing everything, it's all wrong. It's not blockchain, it's Bitcoin. The fact that we can now trade value anonymously, between each other and peer-to-peer, that is going to have a drastic and major impact on how a state is constructed if they can't control the money system. But I don't think they see that far. I think they see this at this stage, and I know the regulators we deal with. I mean, when we have our meetings with the central bank, they still ask questions like, "Why would somebody use Bitcoin? Why?" But they understand that it cannot be stopped. They understand that the best place to regulate it is at the exchanges and at the payment gateways and at the wallet providers. And that's where they're going to do it. And in fact, that's a good thing, because a large part of the reason why people are afraid of Bitcoin, if they have heard of it, is because it's not regulated. It's a gray area. It feels like you're engaging in a black market. And if we can now, and I would love to have the central bank say, okay, CentB, my company, we have now approved them. We are regulating them. We know, everything that there is to know about them, and you can trust them because we've got our fingerprint on them. That's exactly what is going to give people confidence to be able to now say, all right, there's a Bitcoin wallet, I'm now going to use it because I know that the government or the regulators or the central bank have approved. So I welcome regulation. I welcome all exchanges being regulated. And we want to know that they're doing the right thing, that our money isn't at risk. So, you know, I don't think it's as draconian or as scary as all that, you know, where suddenly now there's this conspiracy to destroy and undermine Bitcoin. It's more a case of how do we at least, you know, again, have some measure of control.
All right, Tone, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. A lot of chatter in the comments that were very laggy on the video, so maybe we should kill the video, like all of us, because lots of people are complaining. So just a heads up.
Complaining about that they can't hear it at all, or?
Well, the video is laggy, so probably taking up too much bandwidth.
Well, okay. Just Tone, real quick. We're gonna end it pretty soon anyway. What were your thoughts on the Michael Krieger article?
All right, I'm just going to make two comments that you guys said. So Renegade, so when you talked about Ampool mining Bitcoin Unlimited, that's completely not true. Ampool is mining Core. They're signaling for Bitcoin Unlimited. Those are very, very different things. I believe ViaBTC is also running Core code, I think, and signaling for Segwit. The only pool dumb enough to run the buggy Bitcoin Unlimited code is Bitcoin.com, which was proven when they mined an invalid block. Otherwise, Ampool would have been mining invalid blocks left and right. So they're not that dumb. As to your point, Lorien, as far as regulation goes, I agree with you. I would love to have very, very stringent regulation on all of these exchanges. My view, however, is I wish this regulation didn't come with KYC and AML aspects, but it always does. So that's what bothers me. Like I would love to have like more stringent regulation across all of the financial world, as long as you can regulate the safety of the consumer without, you know, infringing on the privacy of that consumer. And that's the fight I've been trying to fight forever. As for Michael Krieger, I actually wrote an article about China as well in way more detail, and he makes a lot of sense, but I mean, you can't prove that Chinese government is involved, but I always said, even 6 months ago, a year ago, what worries me is all these Chinese regulators showing up with guns at all of these miners at the same time in China, and there goes our hash rate. The fact that they haven't done it is pretty suspect in that, yeah, they have to be at least communicating. I mean, they know what's going on in their own country.
All right, let's maybe we should turn off our pictures. At least I did that. The final question is, we do cover we try to mention one altcoin every week, and so I'm going to bring up Litecoin real quick before we end the show. And people have been sending me Litecoin tips more often. Clearly, if they want to send me $1, they don't want to pay 60 cents to send me $1. So the question real quick, Renegade, I'll start with you. Does Litecoin already solve the Bitcoin coffee issue? And could that just be a simple workaround for people instead of getting all complex into this? Renegade, that's for you. Renegade?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, there's no telling at the moment, how many altcoins we're going to have in the future, which ones are going to survive. It's pretty difficult to tell right now. I'm not against more than one. Bitcoin, there could be a dominant one, there could be a multiple, and there could be a lot. But you also have to take into account the sort of zero game on mining as well with regards to that. But the one thing I would say is that it's all about the network effect. How many places accept Litecoin right now? Will they in the future? And in terms of scaling, I still think the scaling solutions are in place to do it on Bitcoin anyway. So, but you could have both. You could have Lightning, you could have Bitcoin. Have both. There's no reason why you can't. We could end up with a whole multitude of different prices for everything based in different currencies. There's a lot of currencies coming up right now. Even Ethereum's bouncing back. You've got Monero. But it's hard to tell at the moment which is going to survive. Everything's pretty much unprecedented. But people are beginning to become more open to it. The more we see a sell-off or the market cap of Bitcoin come down, whether that will continue. But I know for a fact the more people will become open to that, the more we see Bitcoin sell off if we do.
All right. Lorien, any thoughts on Litecoin as an option?
Well, it all comes down to the actual products, like the wallets that people have. I mean, we have a payment gateway product, and we're providing payments for retailers, so people with Bitcoin can pay them. Now, if I was to incorporate Litecoin into my wallet, or at the very least a Shapeshift, then it might be, and a Shapeshift was cost effective. If it was cheaper for me to convert into Litecoin and then make pay the transaction fee, pay the transaction in Litecoin. Yes, then that'd be worthwhile. But it has to be the wallets that are offering this, and the products are immature right now. And I know there's a lot of wallets out there, very, very good ones, but they need to become more user friendly. And I'm hoping that the one I'm developing, is kind of the WhatsApp of Bitcoin. I've really stripped down the functionality and made it as useful as possible. And I'll definitely consider incorporating Shapeshift, and then seeing if the fees, converting into Shapeshift and then converting into Litecoin and then paying with Litecoin is cheaper than actually making a Bitcoin payment. At this stage, it is. If you're buying a cup of coffee, the fee is ridiculous. So I'm actually going to do that. It's a good idea. Thanks for that idea. Okay,
Tone, final thoughts for you. What? Just give us your final thoughts, and what do you think about this Litecoin workaround for Bitcoin? Should people, if people are so interested in buying coffee, should they just use Litecoin? If they're interested in sending $2 to a person, should they just use Litecoin? It seems like a pretty simple workaround instead of getting all this into these complex arguments here.
All right, I'm going to try and make this quick. Also, it's funny, I just got censored by Google for sending too many messages in the chat box with people, so I can't reply anymore. I've never seen that before, ever. So on Litecoin, no, I don't really... Look, first of all, no one is buying coffee with Bitcoin. All right,
yeah.
Can we please just like end this nonsense? Okay.
Yes, that's a good. That is the best point. That's one of the best points of the day. I think everyone needs to know that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay. So after that, it's like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to push Litecoin here because I don't think Litecoin has a viable future. It's a decent test net, but remember, we can only have one proof of work blockchain, because at the end of the day, they are competing for the same electricity, and they are competing for hardware investment. And it makes absolutely no sense to maintain two of them. Like, we don't maintain two different internets right now. There are intranets that are maintained by a company for something more private and more internal, but there's only one public internet. Okay. Second of all, can anyone name me a single Litecoin developer? Because Charlie Lee is the CTO of Coinbase, and maybe he's developing for it on the side, but probably not even, because he wants it neutral. I don't know anyone who's developing on Litecoin. So Litecoin is picking up Bitcoin code. Why are they picking up Bitcoin code? Well, because that's where the competent developers are. If Bitcoin fails, who the hell is going to be programming for Litecoin? It's really, it's really good that your Litecoin payment and your Monero payment, and your Steemit payment and your Aurora Coin payment gets to your own wallet, on the other side of the world, or gets to your one other friend. But this is not something you want to, pitch to anyone. I don't even pitch Bitcoin to people right now. It's amazing how many new people are coming into Bitcoin in the middle of like the worst controversy for Bitcoin future we ever had. And what I tell people is like, no, get out. This is not the time for you to, get interested in Bitcoin right now. And that's the same view I have for Litecoin. I stopped trying to, introduce people, like bring people into Bitcoin. I stopped that like a year ago. I realized, that's a really difficult proposition. When you need it, you will figure out how to use it. If a Backpage escort and, dealers and gamblers and grandmas whose computers got crypto locked, if they can figure it out, anybody can figure it out. The thing is, they need to be motivated by themselves to get involved, and they'll figure it out, and then they'll eventually realize that there's only Bitcoin. Everything else is just for speculation or for like speculation, pump and dumps, and I guess a potential test net. But we can't even get Segwit on Litecoin. So what good is Litecoin?
All right. Well,
so Tone, can I add one more thing, Adam?
Yes,
so,
please.
So Tone, just to be devil's advocate, maybe this is the perfect time to get into Bitcoin. I mean, whenever there's panic and blood in the streets and people hate Bitcoin, I mean, isn't that a marketing a trading strategy? For Warren Buffett, you buy the hated stocks.
You know what? You're not even that much of a devil's advocate. That's absolutely true. I guess the very first bits of Bitcoin I ever bought was either the week before or the week after the 2013 accidental hard fork by Mike Hearn, where there was all this like controversy with the code and potential, rip in Bitcoin. So it's very, very possible. I mean, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Bitcoin is in the news more often because of this controversy, and this is what's making people interested. But all these new people are asking me what happens to their coins in the case of a hard fork, and I have absolutely no idea. And now I feel kind of bad for constantly recommending SPV wallets, because I don't even know what's going to happen with a bunch of my coins now. And I just ordered a computer so I can start. I mean, this whole mess taught me a lot. I will be running a full node. I will make sure I have the entire history of the Bitcoin blockchain in my house, on my computer. And even the core developers say, well, our wallet isn't really user-friendly. This should not be the wallet to use. But guess what? That's the safest wallet I think we have. I might be moving my coins there so that I know where all my private keys are. So I mean, this whole mess taught me a lot. I can't believe I wasn't supporting the network by not running a full node for the last 2 years. That was a mistake. Spend the money, buy a $150 laptop, and put it in the corner of your house and bounce every transaction off your own node.
All right. Lorien, real quick, do you have any concluding thoughts?
I think stay strong. Stay a believer. Don't let all the fear and uncertainty and doubt and panic make you, to have the feeling that you need to get out. I mean, I'm a long-term holder here, and I love Bitcoin, and I think it'll get through this. This is just another speed bump, but we'll get through this. Excellent.
Renegade, what are your concluding thoughts?
So yeah, even though news is negative at the moment, it doesn't mean it's like, something terminal for Bitcoin. I mean, you just got to be sensible about things. We could have a sell-off, we could not. We could still be in the board trend, we could go through 950. Or all I've done is I sold 30% of my portfolio this week, but I still hold 70% in Bitcoin because I'm in Bitcoin for more than just some money. Like, I've been in this for 4 years. I got into it. It's two things. It's investment and it's world changing. It could be an absolutely amazing social renaissance for the world if we can get it to work. So, I've only sold 30% and I've taken out some alts because I want to hedge against my position. Like, if you can hedge yourself in a downtrend, then why not do that? It doesn't mean I'm against Bitcoin. It's just that, if we're going to have a big sell-off, I don't want to be bag holding from this level. So, yeah, as well as so just be sensible. You don't have to bag hold all the way down if we're going to have a sell-off, but you just pick up at the bottom from all the weekends and carry on. But yeah, I hope that if we do have a price drop, it does force a resolution to the scaling problem. For me, Segwit is the choice just through the quality of the people that are working on it and everything I hear about it. So that's my concluding thought, and I just hope that we can get to a solution sooner rather than later.
All right, and Tone, I'll leave you with the last thoughts from the guest.
I know. I mean, I kind of already threw in my closing thoughts on running your own Bitcoin node. Hopefully, you are supporting Segwit with that node. But you know what? I can't tell anyone what to do. If you're a believer in Bitcoin Unlimited, then if you don't have a Bitcoin Unlimited node running in your house, then then again, are you really supporting Bitcoin Unlimited, or you're just talking to create controversy? I will be putting my node together. I might try and make a video and put that up for people of me creating my own Bitcoin node in my house. So if you're a supporter of Bitcoin Unlimited, that's what you should be doing, because I'm doing that for Segwit because I believe in Segwit. And as for the price drop, I disagreed with Vinny from the moment I saw his article, and I disagree with everyone that says, well, the price needs to fall to get Segwit. I think if the price falls, I think any fall in price creates a bigger, what do you call them? What word am I looking for here? Man, like miners, like the big miners.
Conglomerate?
No, I'm sorry, not mining centralization. That's what I was trying to say, right? I think if the price of Bitcoin drops, the miners that aren't manufacturing their own chips become significantly less profitable than the miners that manufacture their own chips. So some people say that, well, if Bitcoin drops to like 300, 200, it will help Segwit. I think it will not help Segwit. I think it will just create a total, there'll only be 2 miners left in that situation, because only 2 miners will have the money to do it because they make their own chips. So I don't want to see miners drop. I don't want to see more centralization of mining. So I would like for the price of Bitcoin to stay up.
All right. Well, on that note, I want to thank Lorien Gamaroff, Renegade Investor, and Vays for being on the show today. Excellent guests. All of their important links are below. You should watch their videos and share their videos, like their videos, and like this video right now. So I'm Adam Meister. That was This Week in Bitcoin. I should say my whole thing. I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Remember to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share this video. And of course, don't believe the FUD. Stay strong, people. Be happy. This is a happy world. Hold that Bitcoin, or at least I'm holding my Bitcoin. So I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye. See ya.
Later, guys.